welcome to the 7th week. Can you believe that? The 7th week of Hathor hosts. I mean, the show has been going almost as long as lockdown, which I am absolutely amazed at, but so delighted that everyone has taken it under its wing, or your collective wings, and that you've all been so supportive. Hello everyone. Hi Abby. So lovely. Hello. So lovely to see you all here. So looking forward to chatting to Alaina. What an extraordinary career she's had and continues to have. So I'm just going to connect with her now, and we'll be good to go. Hope everyone's having a good day so far, evening, morning, wherever you are. Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Beautiful.
Hi. It's so nice to see your face.
And yours, your beautiful face.
Thank you. And you, how are you?
I'm really well. All the better for seeing you and chatting to you.
And you. It's been a long time since we've had a nice dinner together in Australia, was it? That we were?
I know. I was trying to work it out, actually. I was like, when was the last time I saw you? And I think it was Australia and New Zealand. We definitely need to do that again.
Please. I know. When the world resumes, it will be very nice.
Yes, indeed. How is the homeschooling going?
Oh, it's going. It's it's an adventure. You know, to be honest, I really don't mind having my kids home all day. Like they don't bother me. I quite like my kids.
Yeah.
You know, I guess my biggest fear is that I'm screwing them up somehow, but I feel like we're collectively in the same boat, and I don't think it can get too bad. So
yeah, and I think that one thing I've heard from everyone with kids is that they have a whole new respect for teachers now.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I just think it's like, you know, the interesting part for me is that, you know, I have 4 kids, so I have like such a diversity in personalities and age groups and things. And so for me, it's always like, I've always felt, you know, kids don't learn one way. So you have to sort of be patient and learn how your child learns, or we even have to learn about ourselves, how we learn. So yeah, that's a lot of the respect I have for teachers is finding in the collective how to service each individual. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, bravo and respect to you for doing that.
Thank you. It's been pretty good. I feel like, you know, like I said, we're all sort of in the same boat, and you're really seeing like kids, how they're incentivized to do things. And yeah, it's been good.
And I certainly think it's a time that kids are never going to forget, and they're going to learn other skills as well. Maybe not necessarily things that they've learned in the classroom, but other things. So,
oh yeah,
you know,
and that's always been my my thoughts as a mom who works and travels a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do try to take my kids around the world as much as I can, and you know, I get in trouble sometimes with traditional schools, and you know, I've had to have meetings a lot of times, and they question my parenting, and I'm like, tell me what textbook they're going to read about London, because I just took my kids there, or you know what I mean? So
yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Well, congrats to you, Mama.
Thank you. I just
so we don't have much time because it's always only an hour, so I think we should just dive right on in.
Let's do it.
And start our interview. So I know you began your career as a model, although you did test for a pilot when you were 13, which you booked.
I did.
And then you kind of settled into modeling, traveled all over the world with that. Mm-hmm. So what kind of bridged the gap then when you were a young adult into acting?
It was really quite simple. I had done some children's theater growing up, and I didn't really ever think I was going to become an actor. I don't think that was my thought. I then was scouted as a model, and that took its own path. Again, I never really thought it was going to be what it was. But then I really distinctly remember I was sitting with an agency, and they said to me, they're like, you know, it was my modeling agency in Texas. I was living in Dallas at the time. And they said, you know, there's more and more actors on the covers of magazines than there are models. And we're thinking of opening a theatrical division. Are you interested in acting? I was like, yeah, I did some stuff when I was a kid. And so, yeah, I just kind of got involved. And there there was a manager there in Texas, and she kind of took me under her wing, and she had some classes at her house, and yeah, I just started working. And I slowly started working more as an actor than I did a model, and I just didn't really care that much about modeling anymore. And so it kind of made its own natural transition over a course of about 3 or 4 years, and yeah, and I love it. So.
And one of your first series regular roles was Painkiller Jane, wasn't it?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Oh, that was, you know, it was fun. It was sci-fi, and it was my first series. I had done a few guest stars, and I'd done a lot of independent movies. Mm-hmm. It was actually kind of a bad experience, to be honest with you. We had some little hiccups along the way, but the biggest lesson I got out of it was that you have to take care of your business. And and it was problematic for me. And even going into Stargate, I ended up having a problem because of a deal that I had made on that show. But it's fine. You know, I'm still I'm good friends with Kristana Loken, who her and I played, you know, opposite each other on that one. It had some growing pains. You know, when you start a new show, there's some growing pains in the synergy of production and stuff like that. And I feel like I kind of got caught up in that, and it was interesting, to say the least. I called it Painful Jane for a long time.
And also I was going to say, it was probably, there's that added responsibility of going from an episodic job and where you're guest starring to suddenly being like much heftier responsibility. And then, as you said, taking care of the business. I presume you mean the kind of contractual side of things, which can be a nightmare. At the best of times.
Well, and you know, at the end of the day, you're an individual, and I think I was like 25 or 26, and just on a personal note, not to throw anybody under the bus here, but like a lot of times, and I found this very early in my career, because at that point I had 2 kids already and I was married, and that's just kind of not the way that people do things in Hollywood for the most part. Some people do, but so I was a bit of like, I don't think people really understood that I could do both. And so there was a lot of pushback. And I found that as I built my family and as I built my career, people were like, well, what about our family? And I'm like, what? Who asks somebody like that? Like, like I'm going to show up to work like any mother who has to feed her children. It was bizarre. And so they didn't give me as many responsibilities because they didn't think I could handle it. And there was some pushback on that in my, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. I was like, I showed up with a baby on my boob. Like,
I mean, if anything, you should have been paid double everybody else. You're like, I've got 2 kids, I'm working, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, I'm on time, I know my lines. Hello.
Yeah.
And it, you know, looking amazing as well.
You know, I mean, it's just all those little things. But you have to learn to sort of advocate for yourself. And as a mom now, particularly to my daughters, but also to my sons, I strongly like try to teach like self-advocacy. I'm like, I can't fix your problems for you. I can advocate for you. I will protect you. I will support you, but you got to use your voice. I didn't learn to use my voice until a few years ago, you know? So, anyway,
I think that is just part of maturing, isn't it? It's stuff that comes later on. I often think, I know when the whole kind of Me Too thing erupted and lots of people asked me if I'd had any horrific things, and I thank God didn't have horrific, but I certainly had encounters. And I think back now how the kind of 24-year-old me handled it versus how I would handle it now.
Right.
And of course it's completely different because I have all that experience and life experience as well, not just work experience thrown into that.
Well, and to me, this is like this whole Me Too movement is such an important lesson in that we have the opportunity as women to love and support each other. And a lot of times, right, this is like, I don't want to get too political about it, but it's typical oppressive culture. You know, we as women have been allotted 20% of the pie. And so we're at war with each other when in actuality, the entire pie is available to us. And the best thing we can do is always have a woman so I've always made it a point to have a few women mentor me, and I look for opportunities to mentor young women and to understand like we're in this together, and that's kind of a responsibility that we have, is to grow. And obviously men as well. I have some amazing male friends who are mentors, but to me, you know, we're not fighting each other. Women should support each other and love each other and encourage each other. And we can, yeah.
We can, absolutely, and beautifully said. And what an amazing thing to give back to the industry by mentoring other people and learning from your own mentors. You know, I think that's quite special.
And just that lesson of that, like, there's enough for all of us, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So your next big kind of series regular role was Smallville, in which you played Black Canary with the sexiest eye makeup girl. I was loving it. So is it true, though, that when you auditioned, you didn't know what the role was?
Yeah, it was like top secret. Because, you know, and I didn't really know that the show was, you know, as popular as it was. But yeah, it's like, it was the Justice League. It was, you know, and it was really one of the.
Maybe that's good, though.
Oh, it's great. It's great. They ended up telling me eventually, but yeah, my audition, I didn't know. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I ran this morning and my legs hurt. Okay.
Good girl though for running.
Thank you. Yeah, I have accountability partners because I'm like, I will get real lazy over here. I need friends to be like, I ran this morning. I'm like, shit, I gotta go.
I know.
So yeah, for that one, yeah, they didn't really tell me, and then they did eventually tell me, and so I looked her up, and I fell really, really in love with her. She's such a great character, and I think Smallville was the first time. There had been another series, Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
I don't think they revealed like the full version of the character, and even in Smallville they didn't really, but I'm so happy that she's being represented on Arrow, and I hope that, you know, her story continues to be told. And this is a really interesting thing because this happens a lot too. People will kind of come up to me and like whisper like, I liked your Black Canary better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no competition.
Yeah.
She's a badass character. She's rad. I'm happy that her story's being told. Like, even if it's not me, you know what I mean? I'm happy to have had any part of that legacy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, she's great. I love that character, and I'm really, really proud of her.
It was a very physical role. You had to do quite a lot of kicking and jumping and leaping. So was there much stunt training involved, and how, kind of talk us through that? Because there's a part of me that's always like, oh my God, I so want to do that. I want to be like, you know, flying through in slow motion, like, but another part of me is like, oh my God, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can do that. So how do you feel about all of that?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I'm you know, I'm quite physical anyways, so action stuff is really fun for me. I wish I could do more of it. Although the older I get, on the 100, I have a couple fight scenes, and I was like, well, I'm sore. Ouch.
Like, yeah, it's a little stunt double, do that one.
Yeah. It's a little different later on in life, but yeah, there was a lot. You know, it was kind of a cool. Someone said no spoilers. I promise, no spoilers.
No. We won't.
No,
this is not that kind of a show.
No,
environment or interview.
Yeah, it's a great, but it does. You know, the Smallville does go into, you know, the Justice League, which the Black Canary is a part of, and and yeah, she's just kind of rad. So yeah, like this, I'd just be like in my trailer in between scenes, and like the stunt coordinator would knock on the door, and I'd be like, hey, he's like, hey, want to come learn how to throw knives? I'm like, yup, sure do. Okay. And then, you know, they would schedule in like a fight training or something like that. And I remember that was a great lesson I learned from Kristanna Loken, because when I did Painkiller Jane, Kristanna was the lead of that show, and she had just come off T3, and, you know, she's obviously very impressive and quite physical. And I remember we were sitting down eating sandwiches, and the stunt coordinator came up to her, and he's like, hey, we got to fight. We want you to see. She's like, let's go. And there was like no hesitation. It was such a leadership, you know, and I was like, note, you know, I still remember what we were wearing, where we were, like, so it was one of those moments in my life where I was like, all right, you just, you know, when the opportunity presents itself, you're available to it.
Absolutely.
So I learned a lot on Smallville for that reason. We did a lot of fights, a lot of wire work. I had an amazing stunt double who I'm still good friends with, Larissa Stadenchuk, and she, you know, she was like all game for anything. If I had to fall off a building or, you know, fights at 3 a.m, she's my girl.
She was up for that. And she was your double on SGU as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, she did come on SGU. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And that's really cool too, because when you work, I work a lot in Vancouver, and when you work in Vancouver, there's a lot of people. So James Bamford, he doubled Justin Hartley on that show as Green Arrow, and then he was the coordinator on Stargate, all the Stargates.
Yeah.
And the stunt coordinator. And now he's like directing and producing, and so that's so great to see people like,
yeah, exactly. So it was during Smallville that you auditioned for this little franchise, this little known show called Stargate. Can you tell us about? Oh my God, I've got a fly in in my house. Sorry, it's been really hot here today, so it's the first time we're like everyone's been sitting outside and beautiful. Exactly, but yeah, go away. Tell us a little bit about your audition process for SGU.
So originally, it's fun. Okay, this is funny. So I had done Painkiller Jane was done in Canada also. There's a lot of shows shoot in Canada, and of course, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and so I had kind of a bad experience. So when it came up, I said no. I was like, I'm not interested. And my agent called me, and she's like, they really, really want to see you. They promise they're not like that other show. I just had like a really bad taste in my mouth, and I was like, I don't want to do it. And then, she's like, please just look at the script and see what you think. So I did, and I read. I think maybe I had read for Atlantis once for like a guest star, but I'd never, which is interesting when a show's been around for so long and you're demographically right for it. You should have read for it a handful of times. So that was kind of interesting to me also. I'm like, how do they know me? But then I read for TJ, which was my character, and I really did like her. I just, it's like falling in love. You're just like, I don't know why, but she's the one.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had a really, really good audition. And then when they came back and they wanted to test me, they asked me to test as Chloe.
Right.
And again, I said no. I was like, I don't really get Chloe. Like, I don't think her and I vibe. And they were like, well, they really liked your audition for TJ, but they want to go a different way with it. Would you please test for Chloe? And so part of the reason I said yes is when we were negotiating, they agreed to pay what I wanted. And I read the script and I was like, we're stuck on a spaceship. I'm going to go home at 7:00 on a Friday night.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes I had, young kids at the time.
Yeah.
And so I went in and I tested for Chloe, and I didn't do a good job, in my opinion. I just didn't, she wasn't mine, she
wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, and it's just such a testimony to me. I was telling my daughter this the other day. I was like, I know I'm good at what I do, and you can't force things. If they don't work, they don't work. And so I called my agent after. I was like, I just don't think I did a good job. And she's like, really? Like, do you want to go in again? I was like, no, I just don't feel like it's a good fit. And I, respectfully, like, if they want to hire me, I'll take the job, but I also just don't think it's going to be good. And she called me back. She's like, you know what? They want you to come in again just tomorrow on it, or it was a few days later or whatever it was, and reread for TJ. They'll consider you for TJ again. I said, okay, I would like that. And I went in and I think I did a really good job. And so I got hired for TJ.
You definitely did a good job, because Jo Malozzi was quoted as saying, and I quote, her audition was so good that quite frankly, we would have been crazy not to cast her. So yeah.
But see, it goes to show you, like, it was really important that I played the right role. That was my character, and she's really special to me, and I felt that right away.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? How that kind of connection, and you can't describe it, you can't always explain it to people. No. And because we are jobbing actors, we do whatever the work is, but sometimes they're ones that, as you said, it's like, it's chemistry. You fall in love with them and just go,
they're yours. Love. Yeah, your person. Hi, Leah. Sorry.
So you were, yes, hello everyone. It's really hard to read all the comments.
I know, and sometimes people are like, why don't you interact with us? I'm like, because I don't have that attention span.
I'm sorry, but we send love to you all, and thank you very, very much for tuning in. So TJ was a medic and also a lieutenant in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So did you have a ton of like scary medical dialogue that you had to learn?
Ish. And I say ish because, and this is one thing that TJ bothered me at first, because I had to grow in love with TJ.
Yeah.
Because she always was complaining that she didn't know anything. So I say ish, like she did have a lot of medical stuff, but a lot of her reactions to it were like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. And so she had to consult a lot of things. So no, I didn't have like thank God I didn't have like medical jargon, or not a ton of it anyways. Her storyline was very like emotional and supportive, and being a part of the team, and yeah, more so that than physically the doctor, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny, working as an actor, sometimes you can't pick when you get hired. So you were actually at one stage doing both. You were doing Smallville and SGU, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I read this great story where you had to learn an insane piece of dialogue. Please tell us that story. And if you still remember the line, if you could tell us the line.
Oh,
I
do. It's like a scar in my brain.
Etched into your brain.
I will never go. I'll always know it. It's like,
well, it's very impressive.
So yeah, they were sharing me for a little bit, which was very nice of them, because Stargate at that point owned me. But they both shoot in Vancouver, and so they were making it work for me. I also was pregnant at the time, so I had like super mommy brain. So it was like I had started work on Stargate at like 6 o'clock that morning, and then I went straight from there to Smallville, but I had only gotten the Smallville script the day before because it was Doomsday. It was the final, and it was a red script, which means they can't email it, you can't transmit it. So they had someone courier it to me on this set of Stargate. Actually, I think I got it that day. Anyway, so I did my work, and it was like this insane line, and I could not remember it to save my life. And at one point, they had started, it was like a few of us, it was Tom, and it was like, okay, so it was Superman, Flash, Green Arrow, and myself in the scene, and we're trying to figure something out. Thank God they did everybody else's coverage. And so I was looking at a folder, and I asked props, and I was like, I need a folder or something. I had to put this line in the folder because there's no way I was going to remember it.
Yeah.
And it was only going to be on my coverage, you know? So, and then at one point, it was the sweetest thing. Justin Hartley, he picked up the folder, and he was like, come with me. And he pulled me to the side of the studio, and he was like, line for line. He's like, they're not going to let you read this line. You have to learn it. And he just like, blah, 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 blah. We like Meisnered that shit. And I was like, okay. And so got back. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I fell asleep at one point in between takes because I was so tired and pregnant. I remember like squatting down, and I just like rested my head, and they were like, Alaina? And I was like, I literally fell asleep. But the line is, I should be able to impact the scan shift frequency scaling they use as safeguards and directly route thermosafe algorithms to embed frequency anomalies into the surface area and subsequently any hardware. Yes, I can do it.
Woo! Yeah. Who knows what it means?
But
no
hey. Whole line. So also that episode was like way over, and like Tom at one point was like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's supposed to play a joke, like she's so smart.
Yeah.
But it kind of fell. Because it's like a fucking long line. So
but it's been a brilliant story ever since. So, you know, hey, you can dine on it.
I still don't know what it means.
You don't have to. Just trot it out every now and then. If somebody gives you any shit, just be like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I should be able to impact the scan shift because
yeah. Exactly. Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
so
I
getting back to
a panel one time with Michael Shanks, and he was like, you see that? That's a scar. She's got a scar in her brain, and I've referred to it ever since then. I was like, yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's etched in.
Yeah, I don't know any of my other lines, but I remember that
one. Well, that's a good one to remember. So getting back to SGU for a moment, at the time, Brad and Robert had decided to take the show in a completely new direction, which I actually, in hindsight, and hindsight being perfect vision, but I think it was an extraordinarily brave thing to do. Yeah. And I also think that SGU is one of those shows that has matured like fine wine or women, and just gets better and better now in the kind of streaming era. But were you aware of all that madness that was going on? You were.
Oh God, yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I have a lot of feelings about it. There's, you know, I agree, actually. I think it's a really good show. And I don't just say that because I was on it. I've done several interviews since then. And I remember at Silicon Valley, I was at a con this year, and someone asked to interview me, and they asked a bunch of SGU questions. And I was like, in the middle of the end, I was like, God, that was a really good show. Like, I forget. I was like, shit, that was good. Y'all should watch it. But yeah. It was very heavily, you know, contested, protested. People were not, you know, welcoming. We were called all sorts of names. I was spit on at one point at the studio.
What?
Oh yeah, people would like standing outside picketing us. It was so bizarre. And here are my thoughts, you know, years later, after the fact. There was so much negativity and hatred toward the writers. Mm-hmm. Brad, Rob, Joe, Carl, all of those guys. And I think to myself, these are the guys who created this world that you love and journeyed through for the last 15 seasons. Where is their support? You know what I mean? Like, to me, if my favorite artist goes and, you know, does an album that's like unplugged or something, I'm not going to be like, you suck. You know, I'm going to be like, okay, that was an interesting choice, but I'll show up for them. So I was disappointed in that sense that there was like all of this, like, we love it, we hate you. I'm like, well, how does those things work, you know? That being said, I understand the discomfort. Now, I will say I don't run a network. I don't claim to know how to run a network, but the way that the network introduced us, I do believe it was very dismissive of the existing fans. And I think that was in poor judgment and poor taste.
Yeah. And I think
it was just a perfect storm of things that
exactly,
you know, and then it didn't get canceled because it was bad. We had the same numbers as Atlantis. We were a staple on that network. I think it was a perfect storm. David Blue talks about this a lot. He's got like a really good thought process on it. But basically it was, you know, MGM had filed chapter 11. Sci-fi was going a new direction. Mm-hmm. It was a little premature for streaming. At one point, Brad thought about going to Apple. It was just probably 3 or 4 years shy of being, you know, in that right place for that. So yeah, just whatever. I'm grateful for the experience. I've made lifelong friends, and you know.
Absolutely. And you were wonderful in it. I hadn't actually watched it prior to this, but because I've got interviews with both you and David Blue, and you know, because there's quite a lot of crossover, I've watched it, and you're wonderful in it. And so I'm going to ask you something now. Yeah. That has come up a lot from the fans who wrote in and emailed me, which was, what was your favorite thing about playing TJ?
Oh, again, she's TJ was like super. It's so weird to talk about a character like.
Hello, David Blue.
Yeah.
His ears must have been burning.
Oh, hi, David. Yeah. TJ was so comfortable to me. Like, I just felt like I felt safe with her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She taught me a lot about understanding your own intrinsic value. I was in a weird place in my life at that moment. And I just think she was really, really influential in growth in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. I think she's a really solid person. I think she is loving and she's kind and she genuinely wants to do what's best, but she protects herself.
Yeah.
And that was what I learned from her. She asks for help. She's vulnerable. And yet she's strong. You know, she obviously went all the way in the military. And so, you know, I have a lot of respect for her.
That's great. Also, at the time, as you said, there was a sort of mayhem going on outside, but that must have been an amazing thing to have walked, because I feel like from everyone I've spoken to, that familial family feeling that Stargate seems to have generated across all 3 series. And these people who know this franchise inside out just must have also been a fantastic feeling of feeling held, you know, by this amazing machine that kind of operated like clockwork.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it that's what it felt like. It felt like walking into a family. I've been really fortunate. You know, I've felt that on a lot of shows that I've worked on, and you know, it's just testimony to me that like there's good people everywhere. You know, 95% of people are people you'd invite to your barbecues, and you gotta weed out people who are not as pleasant or more toxic. But
Yeah.
so we did walk into a family. I'm still very close with a lot of the cast on that show. And I remember our first Comic-Con we went to, and I didn't understand that world either. Like, even having been on Smallville and Painkiller Jane, I didn't really grasp the understanding of this big world community. And this was like, Twitter was brand new that time too, right? There was no Instagram. Facebook was newish. So I didn't really understand the gravity of this world. And I remember meeting Amanda Tapping my first day at work, and she was in the production office, and she came in and she shook my hand, and she looked me dead in the eye, and she's like, "You are in for a hell of a ride." And, you know, she's been a dear friend of mine. She's been a mentor of mine ever since. And yeah, total family. It's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
And when Robert Carlyle directed one of the episodes, how was that transition? And was he an actor's director? I'm guessing yes.
Yeah. Bobby, as we call him, he directed the first episode back of the second season, but I believe it aired second, so they gave him extra time to prep. I've been so fortunate. I've had this experience several times where I've watched a cast member graduate or, you know, spread their wings a bit and move into that world. And Bobby was one of those where you just have this huge support system around you, and they lift you up but allow you to shine as well. And Bobby was great. I mean, he had directed a lot in theater, so the aspect of understanding directing actors and character, and that was his. And I think what really opened up for him in that world was the medium of television and understanding, you know, cameras and lenses and lighting and all of that kind of stuff. And that can, you know, you can either love that or not. I mean, that's one of the things I'm looking into getting into directing. And I've been talking to Amanda a lot about it. And one of the things, you know, that I'm, I guess, most insecure about is I don't know cameras. I don't know lenses. I pay attention like I do when I'm on set. I'm like, oh, I wonder what lens they're going to, and then I try to listen to see what they pull. I'm like, yeah, I did it. Exactly. and you learn that. I mean, you know, I remember talking to one of the camera guys on the 100 about it. I was like, well, I don't know cameras. He's like, so you hire a camera department? And I was like, I know, but I want to know. So, anyways, there's always growth potential. I saw Bobby grow and flourish a lot in that environment. At one point, it was super cute. We were really close as a cast, and so we were like all joking around. And he came over and he kind of leaned in, and we were all looking. We all stopped our conversation, and we looked at him like, "Oh, he's going to give us some direction." He's like, "I just missed you guys. I just wanted to hang out with my friends." And then we were like, "Oh, okay. Well, you're doing a great job." And he's like, "Okay, I'll go back to work now."
It's like, I got to go sit over there at Video Village. I miss you guys.
Yeah, it's a different job.
Exactly.
I remember I had that experience with Misha Collins as well when Misha started, when he directed an episode that I did of Supernatural. And again, same thing, just tons and tons of, you know, love and support. But at one point he came over and he was just like, you know, kicking it with me. And he was like, God, we have a lot of work to do. I guess I should get back to work. Yeah, you got a big job, man.
I think one of the things that you were talking about, joking and laughing on set, and I think SGU had this sort of bizarre kind of reputation of being terribly serious and that. Yeah. And I loved that you'd mentioned that Louis Ferreira was like loads of fun in between takes, and I mean, still absolutely professional, but like an absolute prankster. Were there many pranks on set?
Yeah, not so many pranks. We call him Papa Smurf. He's just like, he's still my Papa Smurf. I just talked to him yesterday. Like, he's one of my best friends. Yeah, he's just funny. He's just like, he's a character. He does all these funny voices, and, you know, he's a veteran. He's been in this business a long time.
Yeah.
And he takes himself seriously, but he takes the work seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first 3 episodes, I've told this story a lot. But they, you know, he flies through the Stargate and he's unconscious for, you know, the first few episodes. And so the props gave him a fart machine. And it was so funny because we had just started this job, right? And so he would like pull this fart.
Right.
And it was great to see everybody's reactions, because some people just pretended they didn't happen, and other people like, or one time Jamil passed. someone was like very serious and we like kept letting off these like fart noises and they were nasty. And this person just totally ignored them. They were being so polite. And then Jamil walked by. He's like, "You're nasty, man." So funny. Anyway, yeah, we had fun. It was serious, and I think had the show gone on, I know you talked to Peter Kalamis as well.
Yeah.
He's a comedian.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's hilarious. We used to sit around in our chairs and just be like, "Entertain us." Yeah, what else you got? So I think, you know, had the show been able to sort of grow a little bit more, all of that funny stuff that the hardcore Stargate fans wanted, it would have come through. It's the same guys who created it. They were just trying to spread their wings a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real shame it didn't get its third season and more. But that said, in the long run and in the world of television, 2 seasons actually is still pretty bloody good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Do you remember where you were when you found out that you guys had been cancelled?
I do. It was very odd. We had been invited, a handful of us, some of the producers and some of the actors, to be guests on the USS Carl Vinson off the shore of San Diego. It was a few days before Christmas, and they were going to deploy, I believe, right after Christmas or like the day before Christmas. And that was such a beautiful experience. I will never forget it. They treated us so well. We spent a full day with them and a night. And we had no cell phone service because we were in the middle of the ocean. And so we got off the plane, and my Twitter feed was like, "I'm so sorry." And I was like, "What happened?" And they're like, "Your show was canceled." And I was like, oh. So yeah, Brad had found out pretty much that way while we were at sea, which I thought was really shitty.
Yeah, brutal, but at least you were all together.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was like 3
3
days before Christmas, so that's
Oh yeah, happy Christmas to me.
Yeah.
However, you were not unemployed for very long.
No.
And you then moved, carried on working, but your next kind of big series regular was Supernatural and the badass that is Abaddon.
I like that you like slipped into an American accent there. You're like, Supernatural badass.
Abaddon. All I want to say is on Abaddon. So I spent a lot of time having a look at this, and I was like, I'm just saying, you're the queen of hell. Hathor was a queen. You had black mist coming out of your mouth. I had pink mist coming out of my mouth. I bewitched the men. You could read the minds and see what they saw. I'm just saying. Hashtag, I think there's,
there's something here.
There's something there.
I love it. I'm down.
How did you prepare to play a demon? Can one prepare to play a demon?
How does one?
Lipstick on, ready.
Well, you know that is very much part of the process, right? It's like the whole going through what we call in the business, we call it the works.
Yeah.
So you get to hair and makeup, and you chit chat with your girlfriend, and she's doing your makeup, and then you move over to hair, and you guys chit chat, and all the while you're learning your lines, and people are coming in, and you're saying hello, and then you get to set, you get to rehearse it, and then you say hi to everybody there, and then you go back to your trailer, and you get dressed while they're lighting things up, and then you get to work. So that is the process. But auditioning is so different and inorganic to the way that we work. It's such a bizarre way to get a job has nothing to do with our jobs.
So true.
Yeah, but same thing with her. I didn't know what kind of character she was, and I tell this story a lot. Like the audition scene was insane. Like I get stabbed in the back, shot in the face, and my head chopped off. That was my audition.
How do you act that?
Exactly.
In an audition.
She looked at it and I laughed, and I was like, oh, I thought it was a joke. And I mean, I prepared for it as one does, I guess. I don't know. I read the lines a few times and was like, all right, let me do my thing. And so I went into the audition. I think I was the first one. Yes, I was. I was the first person to read for that role because the casting director read with me, and a few of the producers were in the room. I just went for it. I don't know. I just did. And at the end of it, he was like, "Wow, was a really hard audition. I was like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah. And then, yeah, I got the job. So I didn't know it was going to go as long as it did. You know, I recurred in that season, or that series for 2 seasons. I didn't know she was going to be as big as she was. And that kind of is sort of, I think, a testimony to, again, the process of it. Like, I think they liked the idea of the character, and until there was a synergy and it was brought to life and they saw the chemistry, and they could continue to write for it. You know, a lot of times this is what happens, right? Is like, we really connect with the writing, and then the writer's inspired by the performance, and it's a beautiful relationship. If you haven't read Shonda Rhimes' book, she talks about this a lot. And this happens to me a lot of times when you work with a writer. A friend of mine, Jenny Klein, who wrote on that show, last year I auditioned for a show, and I called her after, and I was like, are you on this show? And she's like, yeah. I was like, I just read it. Did you write that scene? She's like, I did. And she's like, I wrote it with you in mind because I knew you were coming in. She hadn't told me. I felt it in her writing.
That's amazing. So,
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I had no idea she was part of that show. So yeah.
Wow.
It's yeah. So I just think I always talk about this, like, particularly Abaddon, she literally just became. It's less trying to figure her out and more allowing her to become. I think the same thing with TJ. I fought TJ a lot at first because I didn't want her to be meek. And we'll talk about Nikki in a minute, my character on the 100. But I think, as I've learned in my career, is you just become a vessel, and you're open, and you allow the character to become. And I also deeply rely on, and I love working with fellow actors, directors, the crew. I love creating with people. I love collaborating, and that really gets me high. Yeah.
Because it's such a collaborative process as well. So, you know, when everyone does their best and their job, it's the best. It's the most wonderful thing to see that synergy and that thing evolving. Did you have, she was so deliciously evil, Abaddon, and I was just wondering if people responded slightly differently to you having played, because I mean, Black Canary was kind of badass, but she wasn't like, that Abaddon was in a completely different league. And did people respond slightly differently to you, or did they just kind of go, we just love her no matter what?
Yeah, I was shocked. I really was. I was like, oh my God, they're going to hate me. Also, I had remember just come from Stargate, where I wasn't as welcomed into the fandom initially.
Yes.
So I was a little, and you know, I had done a handful of conventions after Stargate, and there was a few of our Stargate friends on the show who refused to do conventions because they did a couple, and honestly, people were really mean to them. So like, I don't ever want to do that again. So that was really unfortunate. And so I was a little worried that might happen. I was like, God, I'm the bad guy. And I challenged the 2 leads on the show, which are very precious, of course, to the fandom. But no, she was, they love her. That's honestly, like, I felt at home. I walked into that world, and they've been nothing but loving and kind and supportive. And I'm so grateful for my Stargate family, like, or my Stargate family too, but my Supernatural family. They've been so just, like, there's such a community. I know there's some dark shit in there too, but we've raised millions of dollars for charities. Like, it's such a collaborative community, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, fabulous. I'm just looking at the time. I'm like, oh, always. 2 quick questions. One is, I was just going to say, one of the things I think a lot of people, certainly in terms of your public persona, don't really know about you, and having spent some time with you, like, you're spectacularly funny and goofy, and that is a lethal combination, to have a stunningly beautiful woman who can be funny and be like, you know. And I think not quite like that, but you know what I mean. Just like that. And I wondered if comedy was something that you'd be interested in, because I think you'd be fantastic at it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am. I'm just goofy. I don't consider myself, like, you know, funny as in I make people laugh. I just kind of take the piss on stuff, and I enjoy life, and I'm fun. I would like to do comedy. I think particularly early on in my career, I didn't really get a shot at it because I didn't have a background in it. So anytime something would come up, it's really, it's heavy competition. So a lot of comedians are writers. So I typically read for leads of shows, and it just never worked out for me. It was never going to be like, oh yeah, sorry, my phone.
Yeah. Well, also because you know,
versus,
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't have a history with it. So
all to come, all to come.
I'm down. When I'm done playing badasses, I'll play funny people.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd like villain, badass, brilliant. Tomorrow night, the 100th final season drops. Boom. So this was really good timing, wasn't it?
I know, it's perfect.
What can you tell us about Nikki? If anything, before, I mean, are you allowed to tell us anything?
Just sort of what's been released. I'm aware that the fan base is very, they don't want to know a lot, and so I don't want to, and they'll overanalyze. Everyone's like, just be careful what you say.
Yeah.
So I will leave it at this. Nikki's amazing. Please go easy on me. You know, she comes in as a little bit of a badass, but there's a lot of there's a story there, and I had so much fun playing her. And this again is such a testament to like the work that we do, and how you know, just showing up and doing your best work is really all that's needed. I auditioned for it, and I don't think the character was supposed to be as big as she was, and I know she wasn't. And when they saw my audition, they were just like, this needs to be like a big arc in the show. And so I was talking to Jason Rothenberg, and he was like, your audition inspired me to write more for the character. And I was like, oh, good, thanks. And then we created, this was while I was on the first episode, and he had been up there. So we were doing my screen test, and we were like, or my look test. And so we were creating, and again, this is such a beautiful part of the process. So I just think we all sort of discovered Nikki as the season progressed, and she's a badass. But you know, I wish the show didn't end, because I think there would be a lot more with her. But yeah, I'm in the whole season. It's a really nice arc, and I'm really proud of this character. She gave me a lot of hope this year, and I'm really proud of her.
Woo! Well, what a perfect way to end and lead us into the fan questions, which I see somebody's put something up on here. Let me try and access that. Any parenting advice for us?
Oh, sheesh. Man, you know, my parenting advice is always, you know, what's best for your kids. You know, I don't honor them. They're people, and they came into this world with their own little personalities. And I know for me, my kids always teach me things. I don't always like to be taught. So sometimes it's a fight, and I'm like, ooh, actually, they're really clever. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with that, where I'm sort of, at one point, I remember I was kind of dismissive of my son. We had missed a flight. We were in Australia or New Zealand or somewhere. And I was really stressed out, because it was going to cost me a lot of money, and I wasn't going to be on time to work, and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, he was like, well, mom. And I was like, I was just really dismissive. And he came up with the perfect solution. And all I had to do was listen. So just, you know, trust yourself and trust your kids. I believe that our kids are given to us. I believe that we're chosen. I believe in all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think having children is a very spiritual experience. For me, it has been.
Yeah. Beautiful. You make friends wherever you go. Advice on how you stay so open to friendships?
I think I'm very lucky. I just really connect with great people. Honestly, my friends that you see me with, they've been lifelong friends. I saw one of my best friends from like 5th grade on here, Christina. If you're still here, I love you.
Hi, Christina.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of one of those people. I'm like, if I got you, I got you. And I don't know. It's really important to me to be a good friend. And I think if you have good friends, you have to be a good friend. So
yeah. And I think you also tend to sort of give off this really lovely, I remember the first time I met you, and I was a bit like, oh my God, she's so gorgeous. And then you were so lovely. I was like, what? She's so beautiful and so nice and fun and, you know, so warm. So you also, I think, attract what you give off. You know,
thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I think you, anybody who doesn't really belong just kind of,
yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. What was it like on the last day on set on SGU?
The way that they did the season ender was beautiful. We didn't know we were getting canceled, of course, but it was a big family dinner, and that was the end blowing up. I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You hear me? Okay. I've had like 4 phone, like honestly, nobody calls me.
I know.
I've got like 4 phone calls this hour. So it was a big dinner scene, and they shot it last, and we sat at a big celebration, and it was beautiful, and they did it that way on purpose. It was perfect.
No. What was it like filming SGU while you were pregnant?
They were so kind and loving and generous to me. I did have a lot of people call me and be like, "Are you going to get fired, or are you in trouble?" And I was like, why would I be in trouble? I'm a full-grown woman. Like,
yeah.
Nobody tells me what to do with my body, with my life. And, you know, so I was nervous, of course. I didn't plan it.
Yeah.
I you know, I wouldn't have planned to get pregnant, you know, shooting a pilot of a show, but I couldn't have planned it any better. And, and so when I did pull the producers into my trailer, I told John Lennox first. I was really nervous. And he was like, "Congratulations, don't worry about it. We'll make it work." And so Brad and Rob came into my trailer, and they were nervous. I think they thought I had something like that I was going to complain about. Yeah. And, you know, they kind of walked in like, and I was like, "Well, this weekend I was not feeling very well." And Rob just had this huge smile on his face. He's like, "Congratulations."
Oh.
And they wrote it in, and they were so kind to me, and they were so kind to my baby. You know, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. I feel really, really lucky.
Oh, that's such a lovely story.
Yeah.
People are asking, I think it's come up twice, have you ever kept anything, I think to both of us, have you ever kept anything from the set, or I guess from your costume or anything like that?
I'm personally not like a big, like I like art pieces, so I collect street art and stuff like that. So I do have actually a piece of our set that's from Stargate.
Oh,
that was
fab.
And then I have a keynote.
Oh,
this is the
that's cool.
wanted from the set. I just, you know, obviously they fly in the show, they don't fly in real life. But yeah, I'm not a huge collector of things. I'm a bit of a minimalist, but I do like sentimental things, and so this one's one. I do have I collect all my chair backs, which when we get to work, we have our director's chairs with our names on them. So I have all of those from every show I've ever worked on. They're in a drawer somewhere. I do plan to put them up at some point. And that's pretty much it. I did take something from the 100 because I didn't get a chair back on that show. Nobody has a chair back on that show because it's just such a huge cast. Yeah. So I took a piece of my wardrobe. I asked for it, and it's just it's a little mask, and I took it on the last day. So that's my keepsake from that show.
That's fab. Yeah, I was too stupid to take anything. And I think I've asked for a few things, jewelry mostly, if I've got really nice jewelry and clothes. Right, let's see. If you had the chance to have been in either SG1 or Atlantis, who would you have liked to have played? SGC team member, Goa'uld, or Wraith?
Oh. I don't know what that means. Isn't that
Just say Goa'uld. That's the baddies.
Okay.
That's what I was.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, that one. I actually just did a project with Chris Judge this week. We just did a little animation podcast thing, so that was really fun. Wasn't he one of those guys? Wasn't he?
No, he was not.
Oh, just kidding.
Oh, yes, no, he was. I'm sorry.
Oh.
My mistake. He was indeed. Whoops. He was indeed, but he had turned to the good side.
No, I guess over 10 years things happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm old now. I can't remember everything. Right, let's have a look here.
Time ago too. Yeah.
For Stargate, were you guys approached or did you audition? What happened there? I think we've sort of.
It already.
Yeah, I was going to say we kind of covered that. We auditioned. Who is your favorite character on the 100?
This is actually a really cute story. I like the 100. It's actually one of the first shows that I've been on that I actually felt like I had to watch to understand. And even then, like, there was a lot of times throughout the season where I'd kind of go up to the writer and I was like, I think Nikki knows more than I do. even though I'm caught up on the show, because there's just so many storylines and things going on and history. But the I totally just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Someone just messaged me and I got distracted.
You were saying who your favorite character on the 100 was.
Thank you. So I remember I was doing a scene one day, just in my car preparing for like tomorrow's work, and I had printed it out and I handed it to my daughter Charlie as we were driving to gymnastics, and she started watching the show because she came to set with me on the first day to like get prepared and stuff, and her face got like so lit up and she got so excited, and I was like, what? I get to be a Maury, and that's Louisa's character, and I was like, yeah, she's my favorite. No offense, Mom. So for that reason, Louisa's character, Maury, is one of my favorite characters. She made my daughter so happy. Yeah.
Now, somebody's asked, what inspiring advice would you give to beginner actors?
Sheesh, I gotta say, like, the business has changed so much since I started. But one of my things, and I was explaining this to my daughter because she's sort of dabbling in wanting to get into this business too.
Right.
Is you know, just honor yourself. There's no right way to do things. There's so many ways to do things. I think it's most important to collaborate and to show up and be authentically yourself, because the right situation will find you and you'll find it. It's easy to sort of be intimidated and feel like you have to fit into a certain box. And you don't. You know, the fact of the matter is if it's not available for you, you can make your own way. And there's a lot of people who will love and support you. And I always say this, if you're planning on starting a career in this business, or any business for that matter, my first piece of advice is like, get a life. Like, do anything that makes you whole. So if you want to move to LA, and you don't even have to move to LA anymore, I don't think, but like, I don't know if that means joining a church, going to ride horses, join a rowing club, knitting, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Have a, you know, it's so important in life to, you know, have passions and be part of groups that aren't a part of this career, that will support you and, you know, grow with you. And I think that's important in any walk of life.
Absolutely. Oh God, I could talk to you for ages. Now I'm going to try and do this because somebody has sent this in. Whoops.
Okay.
Can you read that? It says, I stole the cake.
Cake.
It says, I stole the cake thief. So somebody emailed that in to me, and their question was, they were at a convention where they were in a space and the actors were using the same space, and then they found the note and they wanted to know if you wrote the note, perhaps.
No, I wish I did.
And they also asked if I recognized the handwriting, but I do not. Say again.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, it wasn't me. I kind of wish it was. Like, I wish I was that devious. I don't like cake. That's my problem.
No, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. All right, we probably got,
I like a lot of other stuff.
This is a long question. I don't know if we're going to have time to answer it. Let's see. Having been born in Vancouver, when was the first time that you did the grouse grind?
Oh, good question. Oh, not until I was an adult. But I make really good time on that. And you know, it's funny.
What is the grouse grind? I mean,
grouse grind. It's a mountain. It's a hike.
Oh.
And people like.
I was going a whole different route.
Oh, right. There's that too.
That's another show.
It's no. It's a mountain. And you hike it up and then you take the gondola down. You can hike down, but it's kind of a one-way up. And it's really great because a lot of older, if we get cut off, I love you. Thank you for having me. And
yes,
thank
you
all.
So much.
I've been on
we won't get cut off. We've got an hour. I know. We've got 55 seconds remaining.
Oh, wow. Is it telling you? Okay.
Yeah, it gives you a countdown. So you've done it a few times. I don't want us to get cut off. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and schooling your kids and everything that has come with this bizarre year we've had. Great success tomorrow night. I'm sure the show is going to be a
Thank
smash
you.
hit and launch your career even further. So lovely to see you.
I have another show I'm going on to right after this, and I'll be hopefully making an announcement soon, but just happy to be working. Thank you for having me. Thank you guys for always supporting me and showing up. And I hope to catch up with you at some point at some place in the world.
I look forward to it. We'll have a glass of wine whenever we can. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
And thanks very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. See you next week, same time. Thank you.